Woe to you, O earth and sea, for the devil sends the beast with wrath, because he knows the time is short. Let him who hath understanding reckon the number of the beast, for it is a human number. Its number is 666.
Whether a Satan exists is a matter of belief, but we are certain that Satanism exists. This is not a Halloween fable. This is a real-life horror story.
Welcome everyone back to this most wonderful time of the year here at the Project Gen X podcast. I am one of your hosts, Alan Smith, along with...
I am Big Dave.
And in this episode, I have not told Dave a thing, but I know he'll be able to chime in and tell me some stuff here.
Okay.
We're going to talk about something that Dave and I both lived through growing up. That was a wonderful time called the Satanic Panic.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I went back and did some research on this. This is something I've always been interested in.
You didn't let me do any research at all.
I'm sorry. Well,
if I'd known, I would have brought my Dungeons and Dragons.
Well, we're going to talk about some Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about different stuff. They're people of a certain age, okay?
I don't like the way that sounds.
Well, I'm not talking about us, okay? People of a certain age who have a tendency to look back on the 1980s and only see the good things that happened. And yes, I'm talking about you millennials, because you didn't experience it.
I almost spit my coffee out because of that.
Because, I mean, let's be honest. Okay, it's general consensus. The millennial generation starts somewhere around 81 or 82, somewhere in there. Okay, I know we could go back to 80. I know it gets a little dicey. You know, there is this overlap in there.
I think I have a completely different train of thought on that I'm not going to go into.
Okay. But the general consensus is 81, 82, somewhere around in there. I get it. There is some overlap, okay?
My train of thought, millennials don't really start till like 85.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Because there
way
was
too far
there was
into
a
it.
small subset of
I don't get
Gen
into,
Y.
No, I don't get into any of that crap.
Anyway, it's a different personality.
What I'm saying,
it's a soapbox,
is that, you know, especially in the last 20-ish years, where, you know, well, this is only something 80s kids would remember. Well, the people who were doing those listicles and stuff didn't actually experience the 80s. They weren't old enough to.
No.
And so
I was born in the 70s, but
we fully experienced the 80s.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like because we were conscious, you know, we're old enough to be conscious of what was going on.
I mean,
and the 80s were not a wonderful time to be alive. I'm sorry. All the music, all of the movies, all the pop culture that came out of there wants you to believe that it was all, you know, everybody was walking on sunshine, and, you know, it was all
jellies and jams,
and we were all doing the safety dance and all that kind of junk.
Yeah.
But it was a time of severe economic downturn in the early 80s.
Thank you, Carter.
We were living under a threat of nuclear annihilation all the way through the decade. I mean, it was just one of those things that was just on and on and on. And one of the other great things that came through really in the 80s was this satanic panic of... And we'll get into it.
Don't forget about HIV and AIDS.
Well, yeah, and then of course we got HIV, you know, and exactly. That was 81 when they discovered the first patient or something. So yeah, we got a full dose of it all the way through, as well as so many other things. I mean, it just the famine in Africa. You know, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff.
I mean, the fact that we had to have a live aid to help with the famine in Africa.
So don't let. I mean, what most people think of as the 80s is what has been filtered down over several decades of, or almost 4 decades now, of
commercialization.
Yeah, hey, it's kind of like listening to classic rock radio and saying, man, all that music was so good, I wish I'd lived it. No, you're only hearing the best of the best on classic rock radio. You are missing a lot of crap that was popular. Not just that was around, but was popular during that era. So... Here we are. We're talking about the Satanic Panic.
Go back and hit some of your grandparents' record collections. You'll find some of that garbage.
Yes, you will. Bay City Rollers comes to mind. Anyway, so
Wow!
I'll admit Saturday Night's a fun song. The rest of their stuff is crap.
He went there.
Anyways, so with this whole Satanic Panic, actually, there is another name that's associated with this, which is the one that really and truly it should be called rather than Satanic Panic, which was the people a lot of times refer to it as as a satanic ritual abuse. Okay. Because that's how a lot of this stuff was framed. Basically what happened is what really kicked it all off was a book that was published in 1980 called Michelle Remembers. It was written by Lawrence Pasdar, okay?
Okay.
And the Michelle, her name was Michelle Smith, okay? He was...
Any relation?
No. He was... there's like several hundred million of us in the world, so it's basically what happened is Lawrence Pasdar was a psychologist, and she was one of his patients. Mm-hmm. And through a series of hypnotherapy, he uncovered these memories that she had suppressed, quote unquote memories.
Quotes,
yes, absolutely.
Memories.
And all of it was about how she had been like ritualistically abused, both physically and sexually, by her parents and by members of the community, by all this stuff. Here's the other thing: the two of them wound up getting married. Okay. Yeah. So it's one of those things that as time went on. Now the thing is that Pasdar went on, and his last name is Pasdar, P-A-Z-D-E-R. I know it sounds like pastor, but it's Pasdar. He went on a huge book tour and speaking engagements and became he was a witness in several an expert witness in several high profile cases that happened all throughout the 80s and into the early 90s on all this stuff. And the thing is that every bit of his quote unquote research has been roundly debunked.
Well, yeah.
And I mean within just a few years of the book coming out, other doctors looked at it and was like, no, this is
garbage.
Yeah, but the thing is he had built such a persona and so much clout that he got away with it.
You say a lie enough times, it becomes
true. Exactly. This was the thing that really kind of started it in the 80s. Now the thing is that this is something that had been around for a long time, going back like hundreds of years. Okay, yeah. I mean, and with this, as well as another one that started in the 70s. Let me pull this one up here because I actually have.
Is that with playing Led Zeppelin back?
Now, well, we're going to get into there is that also, but that has a lot to do with it because the rock music from the late 60s and the early 70s, a lot of pastors and stuff like that pretty much said that rock and roll, going all the way to the 50s, that rock music was the devil's music. Yeah. I mean, we have the stories of like Robert Johnson going down to the crossroads and in Mississippi and selling his soul to become one of the best blues players ever, and then he died at the age of 27. And then you fast forward and you get other people who had similar fates. Plus you have people would look, the Rolling Stones had an album, they called it, the name of it was Their Satanic Majesty's Request, which was actually a parody of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. That was their parody of it, basically, is what it was. And of course they had a song named Sympathy for the Devil, and then
supposedly Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin
sold his soul, right, and all of them sold their souls except for John Paul Jones. Yeah, because he's the only one that came out kind of unscathed through all of it. You know,
he owned Aleister Crowley's estate.
He did, which is on Loch Ness, which is really cool.
Yeah. And evidently was doing ritualistic magic.
And he was really into the black magic. He was really big into the Crowley. And this is magic with a K. Okay, this is you have to be very So there had always been this kind of and some of the some of the music, of course, they were really big into Tolkien. So there's a lot of talk about,
elves
and dragons, and I mean, it just all of this
and
stuff.
on top of it, you've got Black Sabbath.
And Black Sabbath came around during the time, which they roundly said, "Hey, no one's doing this horror thing. Let's do this."
Yeah.
And so, but through all of that, there were also some quote unquote high profile. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. We'll call them evangelists, who had again in quotes turned from Satanism throughout the 70s. Mike Warnke being one of the biggest ones.
Okay, you're getting into some stuff that I am unfamiliar with.
Mike Warnke lived here in Hendersonville. Okay, I think he's from Kentucky originally or something like that. But the thing is that he wrote a book in the late...
Why is it always got to be my home state of Kentucky?
He wrote a book in the late 70s, the very end of the 70s, I think, called The Satan Seller. Okay?
All right.
And his testimony was that when he was in college, he was a drug dealer.
Okay.
And that he got involved with the Satanic cult.
Okay.
And I think he'd gone to college in California. Like, he moved around quite a bit. I think he was in California. In his book, he claims that the coven that he was the head of was like 1,500 people. Okay, and he goes through and he tells all these fantastical stories about actually like talking to demons and and all the lurid sex and and all the rituals and and all this kind of stuff and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
He wrote this through the 70s and 80s, and in the very early 90s he was finally found out that the vast majority of what he wrote was complete bunk. And it was one of those things where apparently he was involved in some kind of whatever, but apparently it was like 10 people rather than 1,500, and also the fact that, that people that
some zeros
and that people that knew him back during that time period were like, he wasn't selling drugs, he was never doing drugs, he was a complete geek. And it was just kind of one of those things that it has roundly been, okay, this is complete crap. But he built a small empire on all of this stuff.
Selling.
Yeah. And he wasn't the only one. There was a couple other people. There was Doreen Irvine. She was English, who she claimed that she was a streetwalker and that she had been demon possessed, and that she was the head of and part of the Queen of all Black Witches in Europe, and all this. It's just a whole bunch of stuff. Again, unsubstantiated. There were some other ones. John Todd was another one. There is, and I'll put the link in here. There is a great website that has like a fantastic articles on all of these people. That's called Swallowing the Camel. That and it's the sub thing. It's called The Prodigal Witch, and there are articles about all of these people. Now, I remember Mike Warnke. I had a bunch of his cassette tapes when I was young because he was a Christian comedian,
Okay.
And the whole thing. Also, he was also he was in the Navy, and he tells a lot about like his time in Vietnam. A lot of that has been debunked as well. About like, yeah, he was there, but not the stories that he tells, and all this kind of stuff. It's just, there's a lot of that. He did one of his recordings that he did, and I have a copy of it on vinyl. It's called A Christian Perspective on Halloween, and it was actually recorded here in Nashville because, like I said, he wound up living in Hendersonville. He recorded a bunch of his stuff here.
Okay.
He basically goes through and talks about how he got involved, with witchcraft and all this kind of stuff. And it's funny. It's kind of funny to listen to because what one of his biggest influences for getting involved with witchcraft was?
No.
Was the TV show Bewitched. Yeah, I know.
Hold on. This is me trying to do math. Bewitched?
He said that he would sit with a notebook and a pen and watch the show, and anything that they said on there that he was kind of curious about, he'd write it down, then go to the library, and that's how he got all of his information about witchcraft.
Well,
I know. It just, I know.
Oh, she wiggled her nose. I've got to write that down.
Exactly. So,
oh, she wiggled her nose, and now Darren is a different Darren.
right, I know,
But
exactly.
But it's still the same Darren.
It's Darren, and the guy that plays Darren, they still have the same first name but different last names, and they kind of look alike, but they kind of don't. And one of them was really good as Darren, and one of them wasn't.
This nose wiggling thing, it's.
I know, it's ridiculous. It's 100% ridiculous. So you get a lot of that stuff, and that became like a big thing. I know, especially growing up in a Pentecostal church. Okay.
Yeah.
This was a huge thing when this Satanic Panic thing came on. You know that heavy metal music is corrupting our kids, and
that was any
but
Protestant or Catholic
but
religion.
let me tell you, in the Pentecostal church,
Okay.
because, and I'm saying this because I lived through it. Okay, in the Pentecostal church in the 80s, especially, I'm sure it's been that way forever, but when I was growing up in it in the 80s,
Yeah.
there was some kind of spiritual battle going on somewhere all the time, and it's probably right next to you. You just don't know it. Satan's around every corner.
That sounds familiar.
I mean,
I've heard some of that.
I mean,
growing up.
I heard so many stories about, people who, Satan appeared, in my bedroom one night when I was praying, and, all this kind of stuff.
Okay,
and
no, I never heard
Oh, I
anybody
heard
say
all
that.
kinds of stuff like that. Honestly, I could put together a list of stories that I was told by people who were dead serious that this stuff happened to them, and I'm just like, yeah, okay, whatever. So, and it has nothing to do with like being anti-religion. It's just that a lot of this stuff, people will talk themselves into believing a lot of stuff that
it sounds like a lot of stuff that unless it specifically happens to you and you witness it for yourself,
right? And there was
probably not going to
like we
it.
talked about in our urban legends, a lot of friend of a friend, or there was this pastor that came through telling the story, and it just on and on and on.
I mean, the
and
only
on
one
and
that
on.
I know for a fact happened is the one that I saw that we talked about on
Right,
urban legends.
right,
where we
right,
pulled
right.
into that little graveyard, and sure enough, there was a bonfire with a bunch of dudes in robes,
Right,
or
right.
or whoever in robes.
Right.
And we're like, nope,
Nope.
not today. We backed out of there and got the heck out of Dodge.
Right. So, anyway, this all got going. It got so bad. Before we get into it got so bad, let's talk about heavy metal music, okay?
Well,
Dave and I both grew up listening to this stuff, okay?
Well, you're missing one of the big ones.
Mm-hmm.
This guy right here.
Oh, Anton LaVey, yes.
I mean, he helped hype.
He played Satan in Rosemary's Baby. Okay, here's another. You go back to like the movie Rosemary's Baby in the 60s. You get The Exorcist in the 70s. You get what's some of the other one? Of course, there's the whole story about the Amityville Horror.
Yes.
There are a bunch of these high profile whatever. Now a lot of this.
Well,
let's be honest.
Even with the Warrens going around and
the Warrens, don't even get me started on them. So don't even get me started on the Warrens. Okay.
Yeah.
You start seeing all that kind of stuff. You have this counterculture that's emerging in the 60s.
Yep.
You're starting to see people kind of pulling away from mainstream Christianity during that time, especially the younger people, and a lot of people were looking at this as a spiritual war more than an actual, like with Vietnam, type stuff. No, this is more of this is good and evil. It's not, government against government, and this and that. Communism is going to kill, is going to bring their godlessness to the entire world, and it's a on and on. And there's like this brick was put on top of this brick, was put on top of this brick, and the next thing you know, there's this huge wall and people are going, oh my God, we're all going to die. Satan's going to come and take us all, and it's kind of one of those like
we've got to put a stop to Dungeons and Dragons and heavy metal music and horror movies, and
exactly, and we're gonna get into every bit of that because the thing is that like okay, Dungeons and Dragons, Gary Gygax and Gary Gygax and Gary.
I can't remember.
Of course now I'm like
I'm a Gygax.
I'm not even into Dungeons and Dragons, and I know about Gygax. The whole thing with Dungeons and Dragons is that what it is built around is actually built around a military game that has been played for hundreds of years.
Yes.
Basically. It's a role-playing. It's basically role-playing.
Well,
you know,
it's all paper and pencil and a set of die, and it's a story that's being written as you're doing it
right
in your head.
Right, but what I'm
It's a
saying is that
strategy game.
it was a military strategy game that was used for, and I'm talking about like the military used it for a long time, you know, of drawing the grids and the maps, and well, if we go over here, this and that, you know, what happens in this situation, what decisions do we need to make when this happens, you know? And so basically they took all of that, all this very practical strategy stuff, and said, okay, let's add elves and you know, dragons and knights.
It was a token layover.
Exactly.
That's
absolutely.
all it was. You had the military style, and then you took a token and just laid it over.
And the thing
top.
is it wasn't just that. There was also Marvel had one. There was a Marvel superheroes.
That came.
But I'm just saying. But it
later
was
on.
like there was that. There was one that was mobsters. There was there was so many different types. Eventually,
Star Wars.
There was Star. We talked about that in our Star Wars. There was Star Wars. There was Star Trek. There was a whole bunch of these. And all it was like, no, you're playing make believe. You are playing a role of this character,
right?
And you're making decisions as the story goes along that it's going to affect how the story continues. It's kind of like reading choose your own adventure books in a lot of ways, you know.
And because it was a Tolkien layover originally, you know, it had wizards in it, which had magic in it,
and that is the whole got the fundamentalist evangelical community up in arms. Is like, oh, they're teaching witchcraft to our teenagers. And it's like, no, it's not. It's all make believe.
It's math.
Yeah, it's
they're teaching them.
If math is magic, then yes, they are teaching witchcraft.
Because let's be honest, those games are nothing more than a really giant word problem.
There is a reason that so many engineers and computer programmers played Dungeons and Dragons when they were kids, because it's all math.
You know what's really funny about it? As much as I played it, I suck at math. I really do.
Well, but yeah, so you get into that, and there was also a book. I don't have it on. There was a book that this woman wrote.
Need to look it up real quick.
Yeah, it inspired the movie Mazes and Monsters. Which, are you familiar with that one? That's one you need to see. You know why? It was a made-for-television movie, and it's
sounds vaguely
it's
familiar.
one of the first film roles for Tom Hanks.
I think I do vaguely remember
it's a made-for-television movie. It's called Mazes and Monsters, and the whole thing is about this kid that goes, you know, he goes off to college and he starts playing. They call it Mazes and Monsters rather than Dungeons and Dragons, you know, in the movie. And he plays this game and he gets so wrapped up in it that he starts having not being able to tell what's reality and what's the game any longer, until he finally winds up killing himself. Okay, there was a book. This was based on a book that this woman wrote about her son that did the same thing playing Dungeons and Dragons. Okay?
Yeah.
However, what was left out of the book is that her son was a paranoid schizophrenic who was not taking his medication like he was supposed to, and so therefore he was having problems with reality.
It was adapted from a novel of the same name by
was it Mazes and Monsters? Yeah, that's it.
Rona Jaffe.
That's who it was. Yeah. So it's one of those things. Again, you get into. Yeah. There was another element going on here that had nothing to do with the devil. Okay?
Yeah.
This is
unless you want to take it back to the Middle Ages where
everyone
mental health was actually
demon possession.
Yeah.
Exactly. I know. And that's a whole other. And there is that also.
Yeah.
Because you also have to think around this time was whenever it had started under Carter, but during Reagan's administration, they were closing down a lot of state mental health hospitals,
yeah.
And they were basically turning everybody out on the streets, and all of a sudden we saw this huge uptick in the homeless population.
But it wasn't just homeless population.
No, these were
homeless population off their meds.
Absolutely. And so now all of a sudden you have people running around, oh, there's this guy in the neighborhood acting crazy, there's something wrong with him, and then some people looked at it and said, oh, they must be demon possessed, or they must whatever, you know. And so that adds into it as well, you know.
Yes.
So again, 40 years later, we look back on this and go, this is ridiculous. But this was a huge thing at the time. It was huge. I cannot tell you how many times I went with church and also going to a private Christian school. I cannot tell you how many times I have sat and listen to a pastor or a youth pastor or a special speaker or something like that.
I've done the same.
To come and tell us about how heavy metal is going to send us all to hell, or how playing in Dungeons and Dragons you're going to be worshiping Satan before it's over.
And all of this is how Tipper Gore and the RIAA got
not
started.
RIAA,
No,
the PMRC.
Yeah, PMRC. That's it.
And again, but with the heavy metal, and Dave and I can talk about this. Some of these guys really leaned into it.
Motley
Crue, Slayer, Venom, Celtic Frost, Halloween. Megadeth did a little bit in the beginning, and then they got away from it. Metallica never got into it. Guns N' Roses never got into it. You know, there was a lot of, whatever.
Testament
kind of got into it. Exodus a little bit. But then you would get into...
then you got Iron Maiden.
Oh, yeah.
With Eddie,
Number of the Beast.
Number of the Beast. Seventh Son of a Seventh Son.
Yeah.
And,
but especially an album called Number of the Beast. That on the front cover has Eddie standing and the devil, like the cartoonish, red devil with the pitchfork and the horns and the tail.
Well, we were living in Illinois at the time when Seventh Son of a Seventh Son came out. And I went over with some friends to Mattoon. And they had I think it was a Camelot.
Yeah,
and they had a bunch
of records and tapes.
And they had a bunch of T-shirts in the back.
Yeah.
And I bought an Iron Maiden, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son.
Right.
And I brought it home, and I was wearing it. And my parents was like, "Do you know what a Seventh Son of a Seventh Son is? This is witchcraft. You're going to be taking." They made me take the shirt back.
I know. Believe me, I know. Kiss. That was another one, which was not true.
No.
The Kiss Army had nothing to do with Satanism. Again, they played into it because they saw this is popular.
Yeah.
This will, if we can scare the bejesus out of Middle America, that will make their kids want to own our records, and that's what Motley Crue, Shout at the Devil, and all that stuff. Again,
Marilyn Manson came along.
That's
after,
later.
Yeah,
That's later on. Yeah,
and
did the same thing.
Did the
exact
same
thing.
Cooper
Alice
back in
Cooper
the
had done it in
day.
the 70s. Yeah. I know, and it's. And I love so much of that music.
Oh, I do too.
As cheesy as it is, I still love it.
I know Motley Crue is touring it again. Gonna tour again, but I went to the Alice Cooper Motley Crue
right.
Where they did the.
Oh yeah. Yeah, well, they did their final tour, their farewell tour.
I was there as much. I was actually there more for Alice Cooper than I was Motley Crue. I
love
Motley Crue.
I do too. I saw Alice Cooper last year, and let's be honest, Alice Cooper is Broadway. That's all it is.
Yeah,
it is Broadway.
It's amazing rock and roll music.
Yes.
With Broadway.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all theatrical.
And I'll be honest with you, Nashville did not treat Alice good that night. I was really mad at
Nashville. Has not treated a lot of good bands and acts
and
well.
Alice put on a heck of a show that night.
Right,
He put on a heck of a show.
Right. Alice Cooper, the $1 Billion Babies and I Love the Dead and Cold Ethel, and all those songs. Welcome to My Nightmare, and wound up on the Muppets.
Yes.
On the Muppet Show.
Yes.
Okay, he did Welcome to My Nightmare and School's Out and a couple of that's those things. And then once you get into the 80s a little ways, all of a sudden we see the slasher films become huge. Like all this horror, there's this big horror boom. And and it's one of those things that, again, you're talking about Freddy Krueger. He comes to you in your dreams.
Yep.
It's and people say, "Oh, this is a malevolent spirit more than it's a and you can't kill Jason, so obviously
he's the undead,
right? Or he's demon possessed, or
Michael Myers. You can't kill him,
right?
And what does he look like under that mask?
Of course, then we find out later that it has something to do with druids, and it's like again playing into all of that stuff.
You get Chucky with Child's Play, and that's a possessed doll.
Absolutely, he does a voodoo ritual, in order to put his soul into the good guy's doll.
Evil Dead. We're talking about. Reading directly from the
Book
of the
Necronomicon.
Dead, from the Necronomicon.
That always, anytime that you would run into someone who said they were a quote unquote Satanist, like, okay, fine. What is your what's your what's the word I'm looking for? Your religious text? Oh, the Necronomicon. You mean H.P. Lovecraft?
If you'd actually pulled the Egyptian, Book of the
Dead, that's
maybe,
a little,
maybe
and not even because you showed me the, that picture of Anton LaVey, who wrote the Satanic Bible in the '60s. And I've read a little bit of it, back because, I was a rebellious little kid, at one point, and somebody I knew had one. And really and truly, and that's what I've always tried to tell people about Satan, what quote-unquote Satanism, modern Satanism anyways, is nothing to do with anything spiritual. It's all about rejecting authority 100%. And I don't
know because I haven't really looked into it.
Their whole, and I'm not espousing the virtue of Satanism, but it really is that their motto is do what you will.
Okay.
That is their entire thing. You say Satanism, and of course, again, it scares the bejesus out of Middle America.
Yeah.
And there is a wonderful documentary. I know you haven't watched it yet. There is a wonderful documentary on Hulu. It's called Hell Satan.
Okay.
And it came out like 2 years ago or something like that. A filmmaker's name is Penny Lane. It's her real name.
Okay.
It's funny because her website is yes, Penny Lane is my real name. That's her website.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, she's a documentarian. She's made several, but this one is called Hell Satan. It's got a question mark on the end, so you have to say it that way. And it goes into a lot of like they are the real world equivalent of online trolls now, is what they are basically. And it really and truly, the guy who is the kind of like the face of it, is just a real life online troll. That's all he is.
So he
lives
he knows
in
his mother's basement.
No, but it's one of those things where it's like literally anytime that he appears on something, there's just the sarcasm is so thick it's not even funny. Okay. It's just But go and watch this because it's one of those documentaries you watch that you're like, okay, this is building to something. And that's all I'm going to say, because it's one of those things. It is one of those like the ending of the movie is like, oh, that's brilliant. Okay. That is brilliant. That is
well. I'll have to see if I can find a place where I can watch it because
you don't have Hulu any longer.
Well, no, the wife lost her job, so we had to cut back on our streaming.
You know who did
services.
That? It was Satan. He created COVID. So we've kind of been tongue in cheek on a lot of this, because there were some things really bad. Oh, but before we get into it, there was one other really significant thing that came out of this, and I know you have seen it.
You mean besides the PMRC?
Yes.
Okay.
Geraldo Rivera did a 2-hour primetime special about Satanism in America. I know you've seen it.
I've seen it. I had
Go and look it up on YouTube. It's all there, and it's just like I have seen that thing so many times because again, went to a private Christian school. And we had to have 2 years of Bible class, okay?
Yeah.
And I cannot tell you how many times I have watched that thing because one of our Bible teachers would be like, "Okay, today, this week we're going to be watching this," and it's just kind of like, "Oh, here we go again," And it was funny because me and my friends, we would watch anytime they would like roll the VCR in, and it usually had something to do with heavy metal music or this. We're all like taking notes, like, "Oh, dude, those guys kind of sounded cool. Who are they?" Just like.
It's like, how do you find all these new bands?
Yeah.
Well, we watch a video on the devil's music at our Christian school.
Yeah, exactly.
We take notes.
Also, someone else who came out of that who is still around. You remember Bob Larson? Bob Larson had a radio. He was a evangelist, who was like really into this whole like Satanism thing. Okay, he had a syndicated television, a syndicated radio show.
All right.
And he was always, he was really on the whole like Slayer and Venom and Celtic Frost, like the black metal stuff. Well, actually, it wasn't even black metal yet. It was just like the heavier metal.
It was the heaviest of
Death
heavy
and Deicide, and all that kind of, like when you were really getting into, when you were really getting into like
Cannibal
all that
Corpse,
Cannibal Corpse, exactly.
Yeah.
When you
I had several.
I did too.
Corpses.
But it was one of those. Exactly. It's funny because they're in Ace Ventura.
Yeah.
Pet Detective. Like when he goes into the club, that's Cannibal Corpse is playing when he gets through there. Anyways, so they it's one of those things. He would do like like it was syndicated show, 2-hour show or whatever, and it was always the funny thing about Bob Larson. Rolling Stone magazine went to him and said, "Hey, we want to do an article. We want you to do an article for us. We're going to send you on the road with Slayer for like 2 weeks." So he toured with Slayer for 2 weeks.
Oh, that's
and then wrote an article about his experience on there. And he even came back saying these guys aren't Satanists. It's like they draw most of their inspiration from like horror movies, and Tom Morello is a devout Catholic,
yeah.
you know, and all this kind of stuff, you know, and it's just kind of like it was kind of one of those. It's you can go and find it. You probably look it up. The front cover of the magazine that he's in, it's literally it's the guys from Slayer standing right here, and Bob Larson in like his 1980s like evangelist like garb, like with his big stupid cheesy grin on his face, like sitting in front of him, and they're all looking hard behind him, you know, and stuff, and it's just like, this is awesome. But he has, in the last couple decades, kind of parlayed that what notoriety he had into another ministry where basically he goes around and just performs exorcisms all the time. Like, that's his whole thing.
Wait, he went and toured with Slayer.
Right.
Realized that they're not Satanist and one of them's a devout Catholic. And he went from that to...
He never came off of any of the Satanism stuff. He just said these guys are not what they're chalked up to be, basically. But it's one of those things where, like, he has a... Like, he will go and have these conferences, and he'll just, like, cast demons out of everybody that's there. You know, and, like, some of these people will go, like, will follow him around and go and, like, I'm telling you, it's... And matter of fact, he has 2 daughters who are doing the same thing now. Yeah, so... I wanted to get all that out before we get into, like, the really, like, what the sad stuff that came out of this. Okay, this is sad in a different way. Okay. We're going to get into something like that's actually like legitimately, I can't believe this happened type stuff. Okay, there was going back to Michelle remembers, you know, about this this whole thing. It sprung out a bunch of accusations of ritualistic child abuse. Yeah, in daycares and schools and that kind of stuff. Now, the most famous one being, hold on, let me pull it up here.
It seems like there was a Treehouse of Terror or something.
There may have been.
That they based.
Well, there was an episode of the X-Files that was oh, you know what's funny, because when we were talking about Pet Sematary, the woman that played Missy, she was in that episode of the X-Files. That was the other thing I remember. She was like the lead witch on the school board or whatever. I was like, oh yeah, that's where I remember her from. Here's another one. In 1985, a woman named Patricia Pulling joined forces with psychiatrist Thomas Radecki, director of the National Coalition on Television Violence, to create BADD. Okay. BADD. Okay. Yeah. Okay. We know about MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. We know about SAD, which is Students Against Drunk Driving.
We know about RAD, which was Rockers Against Drunk Driving.
Exactly. But do you know what BADD stands for?
Never even heard of it.
Bothered About Dungeons and Dragons.
That's probably why I haven't heard of it. Because I wasn't bothered at all. I bought everything I could get my hands on.
And of course, all their stuff was Dungeons and Dragons and heavy metal music and, you know, and all that kind of stuff. But
and probably video games.
Yeah, you could get into some of the video games. What was the name of it? I have it written here. Okay, the highest profile case that came out of all this stuff was the McMartin preschool trial, which was in Manhattan Beach, California.
Okay.
The accusations of basically the founder, the woman who started this thing, her grandson was accused of ritually abusing the kids there, and of course these kids, the way that these kids were treated, like the way that they were brought in, like the police wouldn't even like ask some of the questions that the child psychologist did, that were very leading. They all told the same story. They all beat after beat after beat after beat on this kind of stuff. The first accusation was in 1983. It wasn't finally thrown out of court until 1990. They went through 7 years of all this stuff until it finally were like, look, we can't find any evidence of this whatsoever. And I mean, people were drug through the mud, lost their livelihoods, lost all their standing in the community. Absolutely, you know, I mean, and it just on and on and on and on. There was another one and there have been several podcasts about this type of stuff.
Okay.
You know, there was one. Let me pull it up here. It was a podcast. It was a Spotify exclusive from last year, and I listened to it. It was called Conviction, and it is. They did several. Conviction is an ongoing podcast. They do several things, but this one is about. Let me pull it up here. It happened in Canada in the early '90s. Once again, proving that Canada is always about 10 years behind everything that happens in the United States.
That's my word. Okay. I'll keep my comments to myself.
Let me pull it up here because I can't remember exactly where it is. I know I pulled it up here. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Here it is. Because the thing is this thing went international. I mean, there was stuff that happened, you know, not just in Canada, but happened in Europe, New Zealand, Australia, the Netherlands. I mean, like a whole bunch of different stuff. The one in Canada, it happened in Martinsville. It's like I think it's in Alberta, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Another, it was someone made an accusation against someone, and it honestly destroyed an entire community.
Okay.
And the kids who were at the center of this thing are now adults, and in that Conviction podcast, they talked to some of them, and they're all like, "No, none of it was real." I mean, they were like, I was convinced it was real back then, but then as I got older, I was like, I don't think that these memories were, you know, people as they got older, they started, I don't think that those things actually happened, you know, type stuff. And I mean, like, tore some families apart because of this stuff, you know, where a father was accused in it, and you know, it wound up they wound up getting divorced, and you know, and he couldn't see his kids and this and that, you know, different stuff. I mean, it's crazy how much of that stuff happened because of it. And it went even further. There was another, again, like I said, I grew up. We went to a lot of evangelical seminars and stuff when I was growing up. My parents and my grandparents were really into the Assemblies of God Church, and you know, and all that stuff, Full Gospel Businessmen, and you know, my grandfather was a top donor to Evangel College in Springfield, Missouri, which is an Assemblies of God, you know, school at our university, and you know, and different stuff like that. So like, I had a lot of firsthand information on this stuff, and I remember going to one of the Full Gospel Businessmen things one time because I got drug along to everything, you know.
Yeah.
And there was this guy that was talking about all this stuff, and there was a book that was called Turmoil in the Toy Box that I remember seeing, and it was one of the things. It was you know, back when there was, you know, still a Baptist bookstore, you know, which became Lifeway, you know, eventually. You know, I remember seeing this book on the shelves, you know, and that kind of stuff. And the whole thing about it was how He-Man and
Skeletor,
yeah, you know, and like all like Strawberry Shortcake and you know, Thundercats and Care Bears and like all that, those 80s, you know, Star Wars, all that stuff was indoctrinating children into witchcraft.
Oh, and Cabbage Patch Kids.
Yeah, I mean, just on and on. You know, there is in all of this, there was something in that the Cabbage Patch Kids. You know, that Xavier what was his last name? Oh, I can't remember his last name. Now, the guy that created the had some kind of ties to something, whatever. There was also there's a rumor.
That's the reason I brought up the Cabbage Patch Kids, because they were obviously Satanists.
Oh yeah, exactly. You know, but you know, there was a. I would hear it like routinely that one of the like the CEO of Procter and Gamble was on something. And
no, it was the owners of Procter and Gamble, because their logo was like a moon.
Well,
and
no,
like
but
6 stars.
Yeah, but it was also like that. But they also
I remember hearing that at one of the church things.
Right, but the other thing was that it went a step further and said that the CEO was actually interviewed, and he said that yes, they did give a lot of money to the Church of Satan. You know, and none of it. I mean, that never happened.
Because I remember some of the churches, one of the churches we went to, and some of them that we were affiliated with, they were all boycotts were huge.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
You know, we're boycotting everything that Procter and Gamble makes because it's obvious they're Satanists because their logo is a moon and 6 stars, which is the mark of Satan and blah. It's like,
Oh, believe me, there was a whole bunch of that type of stuff, and then of course that spins off into some of the stuff that we talked about in urban legends of like, you would hear like, oh, there's this place up, this cemetery over here where there are Satanists, or there's this or there's that or whatever, and again, it all comes down to somebody said this, somebody blah blah blah, and it was all there was just something in the air that people wanted to believe this. I mean, I'm sure it had a lot to do coming out of the hippie, the people who grew up during the 60s who did not embrace the hippie movement, who looked at that and said there was obviously something evil going on there because, look at them with their long hair and their free love and their
devil music
and everything. So obviously
the devil's cabbage
and it's that whole you get that overcorrection sometimes. You're coming in the 1980s, Ronald Reagan gets elected. All of a sudden, there's a real conservative bent in politics, and now everything is,
It's that pendulum swing.
It absolutely does. It does it all swings, the time.
And it seems like it swings further and further over to the edges more and more.
Now, here's the thing. In the internet age, we have essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just called something different. It's called QAnon. It's called...
Flat
Earth Society. It's called anti-vaxxers, 4chan. I mean, like all are anonymous.
Who's your bad guy?
Yeah, exactly.
Who's our no-face enemy?
Exactly.
That we have to hold up as this is who has to be defeated.
And it's all this stuff of somebody said this. It's got to be true. Yep. And now that the world is connected through the internet, you can find other people who think exactly like you. And you can get in this echo chamber of, well, obviously, everybody I know believes this, so obviously it's true.
Do you remember when we used to think that access to knowledge
we said this.
or access to information would actually raise...
No, it did not.
No.
Unlimited access to unlimited information made people really hunker down in their groups, in their tribes, and say, "This is no. I refuse to believe anything other than this." And
we're back to Neanderthal, where everybody has tribed up.
I know.
Everybody is tribed up, and they don't want to talk to the other tribe.
I know.
If we see that tribe over there, we've got to go over there. We've got to defeat that tribe, and we've got to get their resources.
I know. In 2 episodes here, I've said something about QAnon. Okay, and it's because it's one of those things that it keeps like it got a hold a few years ago, and it just won't go away. Like it just keeps on.
Well, you got a personal kind of.
My dad just really believes all this crap, and I'm just like, you got to be kidding me. But on the other side of that, this will be the only political thing I probably ever say on here is that in our current political environment, okay. Sure. There is, and I'm not taking a side on this. I'm just saying there is this consensus on the right. Okay, that or actually, let me rephrase it. There is this consensus with those of us who are in the middle.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's exactly where I sit, is in the middle. I have for most of my life. That's where I'll always be. Is that the left, the far left, thinks that the right are evil.
Yes.
I mean evil. No ifs, ands, buts about it. And the right thinks that the far left is
lost.
They're misinformed is basically kind of the whole thing, and it's one of those things where like, well, both of you are misinformed. Neither one of you are evil. It's just quit being idiots.
The thing about it is that it's all come down to it's got to be it's
an us against them. Absolutely,
it's got to be a zero sum.
Right. If you don't agree with everything that I believe, then that means that you're the problem,
and you're the enemy,
and you are the enemy,
you have to be defeated.
Yeah, exactly, and
it's not like that at all.
No, not in the slightest. And again, Dave and I both being pretty centrist. Let's put it this way: being a centrist has made the last 20 years of my life really fun at family reunions, at holiday get-togethers and stuff, because my family is staunchly on the right.
Well,
and it's just like, so all through the Obama administration, I was a troll. They would be going off about something Obama did, and I'm like, oh yeah, well, what about this? So what about, and they're like, well, but what about this? And now that it's the other way, and they're all like, oh, Trump, and I'm like, yeah, but what about this?
This has happened to me in the last 3 weeks. Somebody make a comment, I'd be like, well, that's not exactly right, and here are some places that you can go. I know. And they're like, oh, well, what party do you hold to?
Neither.
And I have to look at them and go, I don't. I go, if I'm anything, I'm an independent constitutionalist.
Right, there you go.
And they're like, I actually had one gentleman look at me and go, I have no idea
what that is. I know exactly. Well, that's kind of like being, and I'm not a libertarian. I have some libertarian leanings, but let's be honest, libertarians are really tough to argue with. You can argue with a libertarian on specific things, but overall you can't argue with them because they're so all over the place.
Yeah.
Whereas, if someone says
moving dartboard,
but it really is. Whereas if someone says they're a Democrat, you know what to go after. If they say they're a Republican, you know what to go after. So it's kind of one of those like, all right, fine, whatever. Again, we try to stay non-political. The only reason that we are doing it this time is to point out that this is no different than the Satanic Panic that happened 40 years ago. It just has a different face and a different name. Yeah. That's all it is. There is, to get kind of religious here, something in the Bible, to quote the Bible, there is nothing new under the sun.
Yep.
Okay? There is nothing new under the sun. All you've done is you just put a different name and a face to it. That's all it is.
You put a different Don Post mask on it.
Exactly. So there are, and I'm going to put a bunch of links to all the stuff that we've talked about here, as well as on our YouTube page, which if you guys aren't going to our YouTube page, you really need to, because I usually will, not every episode, but especially big episodes, we talk about a bunch of stuff. I will put on our YouTube page, I will make a playlist for the episode that has... that
links
has
to some of the stuff that we've talked about.
Yeah, like this, I guarantee you, I'm going to go find that Geraldo Rivera special, and there's going to be a link to it, so you can go and watch it. As well as some other, maybe something with Paz during, the whole Michelle Remembers or Mike Warnke or something, as well as to the Prodigal Witch and some other stuff. Just so there's resources, you can go and look at it yourself and get the full story, because we have given you a very condensed version of it here.
Yeah.
But it's really kind of fascinating to think that it wasn't that long ago we lived through something like this. It's
2020.
Right.
We're talking about 1980.
I'm talking about 40 years.
40 years.
I know. And, it's so wild to think that happened. Just like there's other things, you look at it and say, really, we did that? That was, we really believe that, type stuff. And people will look back at now in 20 or 30 years and go, really? We acted that way?
Yeah.
We all acted that way.
At least I hope they do.
I hope, I know. But again, neither Dave nor I are endorsing any political party.
No.
Whatsoever.
In fact, I would say run from political parties.
Yes, pretty much. I mean, we're not no political ideology, no religious ideology, we're not endorsing anything. nor are we condemning anything.
No.
We're just saying, here are the facts,
and here's
go look
happened.
at it. Yeah. So, guys, thank you so much for spending almost an hour with us talking about this. I'm going to drop some cool stuff in here. Okay?
Of course you are.
This may be one of them that gets us pulled off of YouTube because of all the clips and stuff I'm going to drop in this, because there's just a lot of good stuff.
Are you really a good podcast until you've been dropped by a social media platform? I know.
So, but anyways, guys, thank you so much for spending some time with us. Like I said, go to all of the
do us favors.
Yes.
When you go to those social media sites, write reviews for us.
Yes.
Especially on Apple Podcasts. Because this is going to help us in ways you can't even imagine.
And it costs you nothing. And it helps us tremendously. And we thank you. We love you guys. And, you know, we're so happy that our listenership has been rising, has been on the rise for a couple of months now.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you to everyone, because, you know, we do this for fun, but we want people to listen. I mean, it's, you know, it's honestly, even if no one was listening, Dave and I would probably still be putting this out there for no one. It'd be us listening to it, like, hey, look how cool that was, you know, because we're a bunch of dorks that way. But it's
I am Dave, and I'm a massive geek.
There you go. So anyways, guys, like I said, Project Gen X on all the social medias.
Yep.
And then also go to caffeineandsleepingpills.com, and
that's our depository of all things geek.
That just sounds dirty. So it's
okay, repository then.
That's our hub.
Suppository?
Okay? That's our hub. Caffeineandsleepingpills.com. Again, there are links to all this stuff in the show notes. And we thank you so much for listening. And we really, really hope that you're enjoying this October, because we are having a blast, if you can't tell.
Yes. So by the way, I am so high on sugar right now.
And coffee. Caffeine and sugar.
Reese's Pumpkins.
Well, so what you're saying is that you're so high on caffeine that you're going to need sleeping pills later, right?
No, I don't do sleeping pills. You're not going to do that.
Melatonin. Melatonin is your friend, believe me. I know this.
And St. John's.
That's right. So, guys, thank you once again. We will see you next time. I'm Alan Smith.
I'm Big Dave.
And enjoy the season.
See ya.